What's going on, everyone? I put together some Reddit stories today that made me double check my locks before bed. If that sounds like your kind of thing, hit subscribe, and let's get into it. I inherited my great uncle's estate and found 50 years of tracking journals documenting my entire family. My parents knew the whole time. Some estates are full of surprises, some are full of secrets, and some are full of something far worse than either. A 31-year-old woman inherited her great uncle's house. She expected a few weeks of paperwork and boxes, maybe some sentimental items. Then it goes on the market, and that's that. She was catastrophically wrong about everything. I'm Sarah, 31. My great-uncle David died 3 months ago, and I'm the executor of his estate. The house needed to be cataloged before the sale, so I started in his study. That's when I found it. A safe behind the bookshelf, old model, combination lock. I managed to crack it after half an hour of trying dates. Inside were 15 leather-bound journals. 15. Each one labeled with a family member's name. Mine was there. Sarah. I opened it with my hands shaking. The first entry was dated from March 1995. I would have been 6 months old. Tuesday, 3:14. Sarah leaves home, 8:47 a.m., returns 6:19 p.m. Brown car near her apartment on 310. Unknown male driver, license partial, GKX. Checked credit statements through Michael's Access. Still no marriage material. I had to read that 3 times before it sank in. I flipped forward. Years of entries, every day. My childhood logged, job changes documented, dating relationships scrutinized and critiqued. Notes about my roommate's life, movements tracked, financial decisions judged. Nowhere was private. Not my apartment, not my relationships. 31 years. Every day. All in Uncle David's handwriting. And that's just the first entry. The first of what would turn out to be 31 years of continuous, meticulous surveillance recorded in leather-bound journals. The hook lands hard and immediate, but the revelation of what Uncle David knew, and crucially, how he knew it, and which family members had helped him maintain these records, that's where things spiral into something truly nightmarish and unforgivable. So she sat down alone in that great-uncle's house, surrounded by boxes of his belongings and dusty furniture, and opened her own journal. The leather cover was worn smooth from handling, holding the faint imprint of hands that had turned every single page. She started from the very first entry, holding her breath. Tuesday, March 14th, 1995. 6 months old. David's handwriting was precise and clinical. He'd noted my sleep patterns, feeding times, my parents' visitors. As I grew, pages filled with milestones. My first word, childhood friends' names, birthday parties documented like crime scenes. School report cards appeared in later entries with his commentary in the margins. Math struggles, like her mother. When I was 16, he documented my first boyfriend, his name, where he lived, what car he drove, how often he came over. Years of dating records, each relationship critiqued with his handwriting. This one won't last. Better match, financially stable. When I got my first job at 23, he'd recorded my starting salary, bonuses, performance reviews. How had he gotten access to those? But I was only one person in that safe. I pulled out the other journals with trembling hands. 15 total, 1 for each family member. My father's journal dated back to 1975, my mother's too. My brother, my sister, my cousins, aunts and uncles I barely saw. They all had one. Decades of entries. The same meticulous, obsessive detail in every single journal. Daily movements documented. Financial decisions noted, relationships analyzed like specimens. No one had escaped. My entire family had been watched and filed away. The surveillance wasn't random or sporadic. It was methodical, deliberate, obsessive. 5 decades of it. How did he have this information? How had he accessed our credit statements, our salary details, the private moments we thought no one could ever see? Who gave him these things? Who else knew? And that's when the real dread settled in. That's when she realized the violation wasn't isolated to her. She wasn't the only one watched. She wasn't the only one documented. None of them were. She opened her own journal. The entries were meticulous, going back decades. What she found made her sick. I flipped through the pages, Uncle David's version of my life. Entries from when I was 16 about my boyfriend Jake. Not just Sarah's dating Jake, but detailed observations about his body, his clothing, suggestions about whether I should be with someone of better breeding stock. He watched me. He knew things that happened in private. College. My roommate Megan's sexual history was logged with dates, names, observations. How did he even know this stuff? My parents. They told him. They fed the beast. Every job interview was documented. He estimated my salaries, critiqued my choices. Too aggressive for a woman. That company will chew her up, like he was assessing livestock. My breakups dissected. His commentary on my intimate life. Location data cross-referenced with where I was. Apartment, work, coffee shops. He had timelines. The thing that broke me, I was never unwatched. Not in my apartment, not with partners, not anywhere. 30 years of surveillance. I pulled out my siblings' journals. Same thing. Michael's dating history analyzed. Jennifer's finances critiqued. Christopher's job choices second-guessed. 5 decades. All of us. Our parents knew. They enabled it. The responses came fast. Your parents essentially used you as a sacrificial buffer for a stalker's mental illness. That's not protection. That's collusion. The fact they made you promise secrecy is classic abuse logic. Those journals are evidence of stalking and potential criminal surveillance. Do not let anyone destroy them. Consult a criminal attorney immediately. Your great-uncle may have committed serious crimes. Your siblings have a right to know they've been tracked without their knowledge or consent. Do not keep your parents secret. This isn't loyalty, it's complicity. OP came back with an update a few days later. I confronted my siblings about the journals. My brother admitted he knew even more than my parents did. I can barely breathe as I write this. I confronted my parents first. The whole story came spilling out. Uncle David started monitoring us in 1975 after some incident they won't explain. They just keep saying it was necessary. But here's what broke me. They knew. They enabled it. They fed him information about all of us. Bank statements, routines, relationships, everything. They did it deliberately to keep him from having a breakdown, like his obsession was a mental health crisis that required us to be his science experiment. They made me swear not to tell my siblings. I said no. I called them immediately. My brother was already halfway to figuring it out on his own. He'd found some of Uncle David's financial records and was tracking where money went. He knew more than my parents did about how deep this went. The betrayal isn't just Uncle David's obsession anymore. It's that my parents chose his comfort over our safety. Comments didn't hold back. 50 years of daily, time-stamped documentation with observations about your romantic relationships is not mental health management. That's someone building a dossier. I'd be checking his computer and storage units. He accessed your credit card statements through your uncle's account. That's identity theft. There's no protective measure that justifies financial surveillance of an adult family member. So here's where it unraveled. I confronted my siblings about the journals. My brother admitted he knew even more than my parents did. I called them into a video call. My brother went quiet, then said he found his own journal years ago when helping Uncle move. He confronted Uncle David. Uncle said it was protective research and asked him not to tell our parents. My brother kept it secret for 6 years. My sister found hers in Mom's closet. Mom had been keeping it. She broke down, admitting Uncle David demanded she monitor us and report back. Said he'd have episodes if she didn't. The family was holding him together by enabling the surveillance. We couldn't agree on what to do. My brother wanted to burn them. My sister wanted to preserve them as evidence. I was paralyzed. Every page was a violation. A moment I thought was private, stolen and documented. I consulted a lawyer. Statute of limitations had expired. Uncle was dead. No prosecution. I filed a restraining order against my parents accessing my information. It felt hollow. I couldn't stay in my apartment. His observations were everywhere. Getting dressed, intimate moments, vulnerable conversations. All in his handwriting. I moved. Reactions to this hit a nerve. People understood the real violation here. Whatever happened in 1975 clearly broke something in your uncle. Your parents are protecting his reputation by not telling you. You deserve to know what triggered this obsession. What matters about a story like this is the collapse of trust underneath the horror. Her uncle's obsession was one violation. Her parents' complicity was another. They chose him over her truth. They fed him information. They taught her that the people supposed to protect you might choose someone else's stability over your autonomy. That's the wound that takes real work to heal. OP's moving forward. New apartment, therapist, distance. That's the actual reclamation. On to the next one. My dog has been growling at my bedroom closet at exactly the same time every night for a month. When I finally investigated, I found something that made me realize I wasn't safe. 28-year-old Feme. When your dog acts strange, you try to figure out why. But what happens when the answer is something you never wanted to know? This is going to sound crazy, but I need to document this somewhere before I lose my mind. My name's Sarah, I'm 28, and I've had my German Shepherd Max for 6 years. He's protective and well-trained, which is exactly why I got him in the first place. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment in the city, work remotely most days, so Max is basically my constant companion. About a month ago, Max started doing something weird. Every single night at exactly 2:45 a.m., he would wake up and go absolutely nuts at my bedroom closet. I mean full-on growling, pawing at the door, the works. The first time it happened, I thought maybe there was a rat or something in the walls. But here's the thing. It was always the same time. Not 2:40, not 2:50, 2:45. Every night, for a full month straight. I told myself it was probably just a pest problem. I'd spray the closet, check for holes in the walls, leave the door open so he could investigate. Nothing. Max would still wake up at 2:45 and start losing it. My neighbors started complaining about the noise. I was losing sleep. And Max seemed genuinely distressed, like something was actually there. That's when I decided I needed to figure out what was going on. So Sarah did something she probably should have done weeks earlier. She started keeping detailed records of when Max woke up, what he was reacting to, everything. She grabbed her phone camera and set it to record throughout the night. But what she captured was nothing like she expected. She posted her findings to Reddit that same night. The response was immediate and terrifying. I'm shaking as I write this. When I finally opened the closet door and looked at where Luna had been staring, I found a small hole drilled perfectly through the wall. At first, I thought it was just a rodent hole, but the shape was too precise, too intentional. I got my phone's flashlight and looked through it, and I could see a camera lens. An actual camera lens looking directly into my bedroom. The camera is positioned to face my bed. Not the closet, my bed. I grabbed my laptop with shaking hands and checked my router. There's a device connected that shouldn't be there, a hidden IP camera. I called the police immediately, and they're sending someone over, but I keep thinking about all those nights. All those nights this thing was recording me. When I was sleeping, when I was changing clothes, when I was just existing in what I thought was my private space. My dog has been protecting me this whole time, and I didn't even realize it. The comments section absolutely lost it. Your dog literally saved your life. Please give Luna all the treats and thank her for being the best early warning system ever. This is absolutely chilling. But people immediately started asking how and why. The fact that he drilled through from a neighboring apartment and created an access panel is so calculated. This wasn't impulsive, he planned it all out. That detail is what gets me. What made it worse was that the detective told me he'd done renovations to his apartment specifically to make the wall modification look natural. He'd tiled his closet, rearranged his furniture. Everything was deliberate. He literally spent money and effort to watch me without being caught. When she showed me the photos of his closet layout, I realized he'd been planning this before I even moved in. He was just waiting for the right unit to become available next to someone alone. The consensus was clear. Go to the police and get to safety. And that advice mattered.
Gets closer. Flashlight. Tools. Holes clean. Too clean.
I got my phone's light and tilted it into the hole. The edges were smooth, almost polished. This wasn't a water leak or termites. This was deliberate. I grabbed a screwdriver and started carefully widening the opening just enough to see through. What I saw chilled me. Behind the wall was the edge of something dark, something metallic. My hands were shaking as I worked, and within 10 minutes I had a gap big enough to fit my fist through. I reached in and felt cold steel. A camera. A professional-grade camera with a lens pointing directly at my bed. My first thought was pure disbelief. My second was to check the adjacent wall. I went into my hallway and stared at the apartment next door. That was 5C. I'd never seen my neighbor. Delivery boxes piled up outside, but I'd never seen him come or go. I called the non-emergency line before I could talk myself out of it, told them what I found. They sent a unit over. When the officers arrived and I showed them the hole in the camera, one of them just went quiet for a long time. Then he said we needed to call their detective unit. I was being watched, documented, for months. When OP posted this on Reddit, reaction was validating. Security experts, lawyers, all chiming in. Please tell me you're pursuing additional charges or a civil suit. 3 years seems criminally short for 247 days of voyeurism in someone's bedroom. This man is dangerous. I'm never ignoring my pet's behavior again. This post just rewired my entire understanding of what animals try to communicate. Genuinely haunting. But here's what stuck. The dog had known. For a month, her German Shepherd tried telling her something was wrong. Almost missed it. OP came back days later with an update post. When the police results landed, everything fell into focus. They found 247 days of footage and a journal. I can't stop thinking about what he wrote about me. The police raid happened on a Tuesday morning. They served the warrant on apartment 4C across the hallway. I wasn't there. They asked me not to be, for safety reasons. 2 hours later, they called me to the station. The evidence room smelled like plastic. Detective Morrison showed me the equipment. 4 separate cameras wired into our shared wall cavity. Hard drives full of timestamps dating back 7 months. The journal was handwritten, hundreds of pages, dating back even further. I had to listen while they read excerpts. He had written about the exact moment I'd wake up some nights. 2:47 a.m., 3:12 a.m. He wrote about what I wore. There were diagrams of our apartments, notes about when I was home versus away. His name was David Keller, 34, worked remotely as an IT contractor. No criminal history. The detective said he had a journal entry dated 3 weeks before the growling started. Just one sentence. Need better angle. She leaves blinds open Thursdays. That's what started it. He got arrested at work. They found more equipment in his apartment. Backup drives, DVDs labeled with dates. The detective told me the amount of footage meant he wasn't acting on impulse. This was meticulous, planned, obsessive. The 2:45 a.m. precision is the part that kills me. He had a schedule. He was sitting in that wall space at a specific time every single night, watching her sleep. That's not impulse, that's obsession. That's the investigation wrapped. OP is out of that apartment now, and soon we'll see what happens after the conviction lands. When the sentencing came through, OP finally had legal clearance to talk about what was found. 3 years. That was the judge's decision, and it landed like a stone. They found 247 days of footage and a journal. I can't stop thinking about what he wrote about me. I had to sit with detectives while they walked me through 247 consecutive days of footage. The apartment next to mine. He'd been documenting everything since March. The journal was worse than the video. Page after page about my routines, my habits, the exact times I showered. He had sketches of my bedroom layout, notes about when I'd turn the lights off. It wasn't just surveillance, it was obsession wrapped up in planning. The detective told me some entries seemed like blueprints for something worse. Not concrete plans, but observations that felt methodical, intentional. When they arrested him, he was halfway through another wall in another apartment. I moved out 3 weeks ago. Now I check every closet, every wall, every corner for holes. I probably always will. My therapist says that's normal for trauma. I check before I shower. I check before bed. Sometimes I wake at 2:45 a.m. out of pure habit and just listen. The judge said he'd likely serve most of his sentence. I'm trying to believe that's enough. But I know now how thin those walls really are, how close someone can get, how long they can stay without anyone knowing. The scary part is knowing it's happening somewhere else right now. In another apartment building, behind another wall, someone else is probably watching. The comments on this one hit different. I had to check my closets after reading this. Genuinely paranoid now, but like, rationally paranoid? This feels like something that could happen to anyone in an apartment building. That is the last story for today.